European city, and a couple at the water's edge. These are the basic ingredients.
The women?
Young and beautiful, naturally.
The men?
Older, troubled, sensitive, naturally.
A naturally sensitive man, but nevertheless a man of power and authority who knows that this is wrong.
They both know this is wrong.
They both know this is wrong, but they can't help
They're
themselves.
making love in the men's apartment.
Doing what?
Making love. Making love in the man's apartment. A luxury apartment, naturally, with a view over the entire city. These are the basic
A
ingredients.
panorama of the entire city. The charming geometry of the rooftops, the skylights and the quaint chimneys. And beyond the TV aerials are monuments of culture. The Duomo of Florence, the Arch at La Défense, Nelson's Column and the Brandenburg Gate, to name but
The
four.
woman cries out. Her golden hair cascades, as it were, over the edge of the bed. She grips the bed frame. Her knuckles whiten. There are tears in her eyes.
The apartment is beautifully furnished.
Obviously, the apartment would be beautifully furnished. Obviously, would have high ceilings and tall windows, and date in all probability date from the end of the 19th century, when the rise in speculative building coincided with the aspirations of the liberal bourgeoisie to create monumental architectural schemes, such as I'm thinking of. Particularly now, I'm thinking of the Viennese Ringstrasse, which made such an impression on the young Adolf Hitler as he stood one morning before the
Or
opera.
one of the great Parisian
Oh,
boulevards.
one of the great, exactly, Parisian Boulevard.
And meanwhile, as you say, her hair cascades, as it were, over the edge of the bed. She grips the frame, her knuckles whiten, her pupils widen, while he...
Let's say he grunts.
Grunts.
Let's say he grunts, yes, but sensitively. Let's say it's the sensitive grunt of the attractive man of power and authority, not, for example, the coarse pig-like grunt of a mechanic, lying on his back in a confined space trying to open a cross-threaded nut with a heavy and inappropriately sized thread.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. But the masterful grunt of a man who breakfasts on one continent and lunches on another, who flies first class with a linen napkin and a comprehensive wine list.
That kind of man.
That kind of grunt.
That kind of light.
What kind of light?
The kind of light that streams in. It streams into the tall window, transforming the bodies into a kind of golden mass.
A writhing mass.
The light, the golden mass, these are the essential ingredients.
But now, a look crosses her face.
What?
A look, a doubt.
A look of doubt. Yes. Good. Crosses down his face.
Even now,
Even now, in the intensity of her passion.
even now in the intensity of her passion, a kind of shadow crosses her face.
A premonitory shadow.
Premonitory.
A premonitory shadow, yes. Crosses her face.
Is that a word?
Is what a word?
Oh yes, premonitory is the word.
Later, night.
The lights of the city at night. Strings of lights suspended starlight along the quays and frameworks of bridges. Odd, dull, red warning lights pulsing on the top of tower blocks and TV transmitters. The man at the telephone, his lowered voice, his troubled glances.
Anne wakes up on the solid walnut bed, hears his faint male voice in the adjoining room. The exquisite Louis XIV's clock beside her chimes 3 by means of a tiny, tiny naked gilt shepherd striking a tiny, tiny golden bell held between the teeth of an enameled wolf. No doubt a reference to an ancient myth well known among the 17th century French nobility, but now totally erased from human consciousness.
Ding, ding, ding.
3 a.m. Anne wakes. Hears voice, lights cigarette, appears in doorway. Dialogue.
Who was it? She says.
Nothing, he says.
Who the fuck was he? She says. End of dialogue.
And now she's angry. Exactly. End of dialogue. And now she's angry because she knows exactly who it is.
His political masters calling him.
His political masters, that's right, calling him, just as they have always called him. The very political masters that she hates with every fibre of her being, the very men and women that she, Anne, in her youthful idealism, Who's responsible for the terminal injustice of this world?
The leaders, who in her naive and passionate opinion have destroyed everything that she values in the name A of business and B of philosopher.
In the name A of rationalization and B of enterprise.
In the name of so-called individualism and B of so-called choice.
The basic ingredients, in other words, of a whole tragedy.
A whole tragedy, exactly, unfolds before our eyes in Paris, Prague, Venice, Berlin, to name but four, as the moon, vast and orange, rises above the Renaissance palaces, Baroque domes, 19th century zoos and railway stations, and modernist slabs of social housing, exemplifying the dictum, form follows function.
Form follows function.
This is called tragedy of love.
This whole, exactly, tragedy of ideology and love.
She steps out the cigarette.
She begins to shout.
She begins to beat him with her fists.
She begins to bite him with her teeth.
She begins to kick him with her bare white fish. She beats and beats. She beats and beats. And the exquisite glove, which has survived 2 revolutions and 3 centuries, is smashed to pieces on the smooth and highly polished parquet as she beats, bites, and kicks.
The tiny, tiny shepherd and the tiny, tiny bell both vanish. Rather nice touch, this. Both vanish forever under the walnut bed.
Until she stops for breath. Let's say she finally at this point stops for breath.
The woman.
The woman Anne, yes. Stops for breath.
And he
Bows his head. Looks up at her.
Yes.
Takes her tear-stained face between his hands.
takes Anne's tear-stained face between his hands like a precious chalice.
Or a rugby football.
Like a precious silver chalice, or as you say, a rugby football before a dropkick, he takes Anne's tear-stained face between his hands.
He still loves her.
That's right. For all their ideological differences, he still loves her. Speech.
One day, Anne, he says, you'll understand my word. One day, Anne, you'll understand that everything must be paid for. That even your ideals must finally be paid for. End of the speech. At which he smooths the wet strands of hair from her lips and kisses. These are the basic ingredients.
He kisses her and presses her back down onto the bed. Or she him. Better still, she presses him back down into the bed. Such is her emotional confusion, such is her sexual appetite, such is her inability to distinguish between right and wrong in this great, consuming passion in the high-ceilinged apartment with the solid walnut bed, the polished parquet floor, the piano by Player circa 1923. Without, it should perhaps be noted, any visible means of protection against pregnancy in the case of Anne, and in the case of either against sexually transmitted diseases, including the so-called AIDS virus, more correctly known as the human immune deficiency virus, or HIV.
Portrait of a young woman sketching, once thought to be by David, but now attributed to his female contemporary Constance Charpentier, in a yellow triangular ashtray with the legend, Ricard. Containing 3 cigarette butts and a quantity of fine grey ash.
A great tragedy. In other words,
A
love.
great, exactly, tragedy of ideology and love.
These are the basic ingredients.